that point of where you're learning and you feel like you know everything. And then all of a sudden, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I'm at that point where I'm like, holy moly, we know nothing.
We need to also remember that, again, our coaches, our people, they're also working other jobs majorly, unless if you're, a professional athlete. They're not getting paid enough for the amount of work they do.
You can't show up with the exact same energy at that high level for the entire year. It's just not possible.
Welcome to 40G.
Chloe Giles, welcome to the 40G podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited about this chat, and I say this about every episode, but this one in particular, it resonates with me, and I know it's going to resonate with so many listeners because before 10 a.m. as time of recording, we are going to break down one of the biggest issues in female sport right now, and that is overtraining, under-recovering, and the invisible load that no one talks enough about.
I like that. That's actually a great intro.
I hope you've had your coffee.
Well, I actually haven't yet. It's too early for a coffee for me. But listening to that, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even need a coffee.
Yeah, so energetic. Brilliant. So before we get into it, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now.
All right. Well, at the moment, I am mostly spending my time at Carlton Football Club. I've been there for a couple of years now, and I work as the high performance manager of the VfLW team and the assistant strength and conditioning coach at the AFLW team. Outside of the club as well, I'm studying my PhD at La Trobe, and then I'm also at Full Speed Performance as a strength and conditioning coach there as well.
Brilliant. So talking about load management, you would need to know that quite well.
Yes, in all aspects.
Right. Now, so we're going to get into some rapid fire questions at the start. Mm-hmm. Why do so many female athletes think that they're not doing enough when realistically they're doing everything?
I think this question's so interesting to me because it's so true. And I see this all the time, and I have for years. I don't necessarily have an answer as to why. I don't know why. I think that potentially there is influence now. I guess we're kind of at the stage with female athletes that we are lucky enough to have so much around us in a social media sense and have so many role models to look up to. But also in that same space, I guess, of social media, you have the massive saturation of influencers and fitness and performance and I guess misguided information in that sense, which paints a really unrealistic picture of who athletes should be, what athletes should look like, what athletes do in their day-to-day life. It's all the what I eat in a day as an athlete and all of these readily accessible, misinformation a lot of the time that is everywhere. And I think from what the conversations I've had, a lot of it is, oh, but I saw this, I saw this person do this and I saw this person do this and that's fine a lot of the time. But I think that we're kind of at a point now where all the conversations I'm having, I'm like, but they don't have the same goals as you. Like, the person that you're looking at and the person you're telling me that you're trying to train to be like isn't even a footy player.
Mm.
Like their life is actually as an influencer, like a fitness influencer, and they're, doing all these other like marathon running and things like that. That's actually so not aligned with your goal as it is anyway, that everything just kind of gets misconstrued and people think that they're not doing enough because they wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, this person went for a run at 5 a.m. Like, yeah, but your priority is sleep at the moment.
Mm.
Like, you can't kind of look at that and be like, oh, I should be doing more. I shouldn't, because that's the thing. I think at the moment, what I'm seeing more of is people doing too much as opposed to too little, which is a really interesting conversation as well.
So how much is too much? How long's a piece of string, right?
Oh my gosh. There's no black or white answer to that. I think that it is so dependent on the individual, and I think that this is, I guess, where like my studies have come into it and why I'm so excited to be going into a bit more research about this topic in particular, in terms of there's not just when we look at what an athlete's doing during the day and during like their life, a lot of the time we're just looking at what they're doing when they come to training and what they're doing in the gym. We have a look at what they're doing on the field. Are they sprinting? Are they jogging? Like all those different load measures that we're looking at. It even might be heart rate and things that we're looking at from that perspective. But then there's so much else. Like, what are they doing in that, 9 till 3 before they come to training at 4 in the case of like a VfLW team training kind of that after that work period. What have they done for the day? And whether that is looking at, have they been studying? Are they, at a really high cognitive load? Have they been, on their feet as a nurse all day? Like there's so many things, and maybe they're not doing anything during the day, and that's also fine. But in terms of what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing, there's just this endless need for, I guess, conversation. And I feel like that's the best way that I've kind of approached it, is literally just sitting down and individually with an athlete going through their schedule. Like, what does your week look like? Tell me what you do like during the day, like not in terms of a interrogation, but in terms of like I just want to know, like, what are you actually doing? Like, are you tired when you get to training? I kind of want to know that aspect, because maybe everyone else is coming to training and we're doing the exact same amount of work, but you're exhausted because something else has happened today. And like, I need to know that, because then that does maybe mean that you are overtraining, whereas everyone else, even though you're doing the same thing, they're actually going really well, and that's a really good load for them. So it's so individualized, which is not helpful in terms of a fast answer, but it's actually
an important conversation around it. But it's so true. Like, we're in this world where we've always been glorified for doing extras. And if you want to be the best, you have to be working harder than everyone else in the room. And you look at your people like your David Goggins, and you basically are told that you have to flog yourself to be the best. And we're starting to realize now that as athletes, and especially what you're mentioning earlier about sleep, in the hustle culture of business, it's like you're glorified if you only sleep 3 or 4 hours. But if you're an athlete, you need that 8 to 10 hours. So it doesn't align with that. So it's so important that we start having these conversations. And it's important that coaches and parents have these conversations as well, that they're not pushing their athletes and their children to be doing these extras all the time, that sometimes less is actually more, because it doesn't matter how much you do. If you're not recovering and your nervous system is fried, you're not going to get the best out of you as an athlete and as a person outside of sport as well.
100%. And as much as there is, I guess, more information coming out around that kind of topic in particular, and like, those terms like listen to your body and that kind of thing, there's not enough. And it is a fine line, because I think it does depend on the athlete. Obviously, like, there's always going to be a wide spectrum. You'll have the athletes who are doing too much and you're constantly being like, stop, like, slow down. You are not recovering well enough. There's also the other end when you're like, you know what? Yeah. You kind of do need a bit more David Goggins in you right now.
You need a bit of a G up
a little bit, do the 1%ers. Yeah. So there's always going to be a balance between different personalities, but I will tend to see more of that end of the spectrum where it's like, you really need to take a breath, because you're going to burn yourself out. We haven't even started the season yet.
Yes.
And I think that would be really, really common, especially in like the sub-elite athlete as well, when they've got so much else going on in their life.
Yeah. And how have you found from your studies, how has this changed from female athletes in comparison to male athletes? Because obviously, stereotypically, women, we wear lots of hats. We are, we're mothers, we're students, we're workers, we're carers, we've got to do the groceries, cook the meals and all of that. Again, this is very stereotypical, but generally this happens a lot, where these are considerations that males, especially male athletes, probably don't have to consider as much. So how does load management change for women as opposed to men? Yeah,
well, I feel like this is pretty much why I wanted to do this research, because that's what I've been working with female athletes for the majority of my career. And it's just from the conversations that I've been having with people where we have had, I think it's probably those athletes who I've been talking to who are like the midwives and the nurses. And I'll talk to them in terms of like their overnight shifts and things like that. And I think it's a different conversation. And again, it can be, I don't want to come off stereotypical, but the difference, I was working with like a local footy team of males, and then continuing with my VfLW teams, and I was doing both of them at the same time earlier this year. And the difference I was seeing in terms of what they're doing before training, because their trainings were both, in the afternoon, they were after work. They trained 2 times a week. They were all kind of the same thing there, except what they were doing beforehand was significantly different. And again, the thing with female athletes is they're not researched enough. We have barely any evidence to be supporting them, because a lot of the time it falls into the too hard basket of females have so much going on that it's too hard to, just break everything down, right? Which I think is what, again, I'm looking at is the big picture. But yeah, I was looking at the males versus females, and from my perspective, like a lot of the men who were coming to their local training, they would come from a very kind of labor intensive day, so to speak. So if you think about kind of the trades and things, we had a fair few electricians and things like that who are on their feet quite early in the day, and they'll come straight from work. And then I'd come to VfLW and we'd have such a mix of what people were doing during the day. Like we'd have teachers who were, on their feet and yelling at kids for the majority of the day. We'd have nurses who would come in straight off a overnight shift straight in. They would have just had a nap, come straight to training. We'd have uni students who were studying for all their classes like during the day, and then from like a cognitive perspective come in and are fried in a sense, even though they haven't been kind of on their feet. So I think that there's just, to me, so much happening that we just have no idea how to support. And again, it opens a picture when I was saying before that the best way that I've found to kind of get to know the athletes and help them and support them is to have one-on-one conversations. It's one of those aspects that people might consider, again, too hard basket, right? Like going and speaking to every single one of your athletes, especially in a program that maybe isn't supported financially in terms of from a time perspective and staffing resources, but having the time to understand exactly what each of your players is doing and what that actually might be meaning for things like their like injury prevention. Like, if they're coming straight from an overnight shift, where does that put them in position for if they're about to get on the field and do sprinting? Is that actually detrimental to them? And can we be preventing and, providing better support that doesn't involve us just being like, hey, we'd probably prefer you not to work and just come to training really fresh. That'd be good. Because that's not a possibility. Like you can't do that. So it's like, okay, well, that's not an option. What can we be doing to actually be supporting both their career and looking at achieving high performance and like the balance of that?
Exactly. And I would love to say that, we wouldn't have to consider that because at one stage, hopefully they'll be getting paid enough that they don't have to be having these other jobs. But at the moment, it's not realistic. So it's about how can we best work that into their current lifestyle. 100%. And I think it's interesting because I think at the semi-elite level, that is where it really kicks in. Because if you're a local community player, often you use sport as a bit of an outlet from the outside world. But if you're a semi-elite player, you can't really use it as an outlet because you're worrying about selection, you're worrying about performance, recovery and all of that, where it does almost become a full-time job and you're almost training as much as a professional athlete. So you're juggling 100%. That on top of work, on top of study, on top of being a good partner, a good friend and everything. And I really think that's the almost sweet spot. Not really that sweet, but that's the point, like I should say the breaking point of a lot of athletes. I think that's where a lot of research and probably a lot of resourcing needs to go into is that level itself. Have you found that with your VfLW girls?
Absolutely. I think the sub-elite to me, and just from an outsider, like I'm not a sub-elite athlete, but I work with them, and from watching them, that is a hard gig. It is so hard to understand that you are not yet at the level where you are being, financially compensated to a point where you can support yourself and just solely focus on your performance. At the same time, that means you're having to work full time. And it's literally what you were saying, like 2 full-time jobs, right? Like it's so hard to go about your day. And because a lot of us would probably take for granted the idea of you go to work and then you go home and then you wake up the next day and you might go to work and then you go home. Whereas what a lot of them are doing is they wake up in the morning, they go to work. During the day, they're thinking about things like fueling. They're like, did I sleep well last night? They might have a wellness questionnaire that they've had to do in the morning. That's like, what are my stress levels like? How's my body feeling? Like they might be going to work and they're like, whoa, like I'm really sore. And then they're making sure that they're, eating well during the day because you've got training tonight. So they're making sure that, they are fueling beforehand. Then they're coming to training. They're not getting home until, 9, 10, wake up, repeat. And so I think that the idea, and I guess the term sub-elite probably doesn't do it justice in the sense of it kind of sounds like, oh yeah, like you're almost there,
Yeah.
right? Like semi-professional, like, you're not quite there. Holy moly, it's a hard, like that
You're
is
just
a hard
sub
spot.
financial.
Oh, it's sub-financial. It's not sub-elite. That is a great way to put it. But it is, like, I just, there's so many of them who I'll chat to and I'm like, that, what you're doing is so incredibly impressive. And again, then it links back to the conversation of they then still have that thought of, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
Like, how do you
Yeah.
mean? What are you thinking that you're not doing enough for, that you're doing so much? And like, maybe that is that they're looking at their, where they want to be, and they want to be a like top performing athlete. They want to be that professional level athlete. And so I guess literally the research that I'm trying to do is trying to figure out what we can be doing and what we can be looking at in their like life and throughout what they're doing to make sure that we're putting their best foot forward to then get them into that, that professional standard that they want to be without having to compromise. Like, because if you're not working, if you're not doing full-time work, then there's probably a financial stress component in there as well. So again, detrimental to performance.
That's right. It's just a vicious cycle, isn't it?
It's such a cycle.
It's kind of the paradox that less is more in sense, because again, if you're going to work and you're tired, you're sore, you're not going to give your best at work, then that can be a consideration. You're going into training being like, oh, I didn't do enough at work, or I'm not performing, hitting my KPIs. You don't train well. Then you go to work being like, oh, I'm not, training well enough. It's just a constant vicious cycle. And it's something that, I've struggled with myself. It's like you can't really switch off between the two. They sort of blend into one. So it's having these conversations, and again, at this sub-elite level of how can we best manage this, and different, as you say, for shift workers, like hats off with shift workers without having to be a sub-elite athlete or athlete. I just think it's such a stress on your body, your sleep, your routine, everything. But then trying to navigate that with training and everything else, just it's incredible. So much work to be done. So thank you for looking into that one for us. Very excited to hear all your learnings from it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit now about yourself. So what role did sport play in your childhood growing up?
So I grew up as a netballer. I'd always been quite a like sporty kid. My parents were fantastic in supporting. I had so many endeavors that I wanted to go down, and netball ended up kind of being one of my main ones, because I was told it was netball or basketball, because I kept running with the ball in netball and bouncing the ball and just stopping and pivoting in basketball. So they were like, okay, we need to choose one here. So it was netball, and my sister and I played that for many years, and not as a not even aspiring to be. I didn't really have that goal of being a professional top level netball player. I wanted to be a good netballer, but I didn't have that kind of goal. To me, sport was that part of my life that was just genuinely fun, and I loved it. And I would have so many things on, after school. I was, that kid who had, have a dance lesson on a Monday night, and then I'd have netball training on a Tuesday night, and then you might have swimming on a Wednesday. Like that schedule that sounded crazy, but that was always the fun part of my day. Like, I love school, but then I was like, oh, cool. Like, I got like sport tonight. Like, awesome. And I think that kind of gone through school, and I went through a stage of being like, I'm going to be a scientist. Like, this will be really good. I'm going to be a microbiologist. And that was my goal there for a while. And then I realized that's not what I want to do, and I have no interest in that. And I took up year 12 PE, and my teacher for year 12 was like, hey, you're actually quite good at this. And it came very naturally to me, just like, all the content of PE. And I was like, of course it does. Like, I love sport. Like, that's what I love to do after school. That's my choice as my hobby. So it makes sense. And then she kind of like given me some ideas of potentially what I could be doing outside of that. And it wasn't really something that I'd thought about, because at the time, sport jobs weren't really crazy serious. Like, a strength and conditioning coach was a PT. It was kind of the same thing. There wasn't a difference between the two really. And so I didn't really have that as a goal until I was leaving. And as I kind of went through some uni courses and things, there were all of these options that you could be working in sport. And I was like, that is the coolest thing because I love it. And that's my passion. And I didn't even realize probably at the time, I just love like playing sport, right? So I hadn't really considered what working in sport would be like.
Yeah.
And you never really know until you get into it. And I did just my sports science degree, and a lot of it was in COVID. So bit of a shame because I am very much an in-person learner. So the online Zooms were the worst.
Death by Zoom.
But yeah, oh my goodness. But I got through that and I did an internship and one of them was at Carlton. And it was very short-lived because it was in 2020. It was the first couple months of the year. And it was my first kind of exposure to the high performance sport. So I'd been like, a couple placements of local teams and I love that community aspect. But then it was my first taste of, it was performance analysis. So I was like filming athletes and things very different to what I'm doing now. But that was my internship there. And I remember being at the club and I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like high performance sport it feels so exciting and so professional. And it felt like a career and not a hobby. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so then I went on and did my Masters of Strength and Conditioning because I love that aspect of being in the gym and physically being there and watching athletes get better and them asking questions and wanting the advice of like, oh, I'm feeling this here. Like, how can I make this better? Or like, this exercise is no good for me. And I love that problem solving and, individualizing that aspect. And so that's where I kind of went into strength and conditioning. And I was lucky enough to get on board at Carlton with their VfLW program as an S&C. And then the opportunity arose, it was early this year or late last year for the high performance manager role. And I definitely considered that aspect. I think I'd seen myself in the gym just solely as a S&C for so long. And then I started having these conversations with athletes where I'm like, I want to know more about you. Like, how are you sleeping? Like, how are you recovering? What are all of the other aspects that make you an athlete? And how can I best support you as a team? And how can we look at things like your loading and like returning from injury and all of those aspects, as well as opposed to just looking at kind of that strength and power, I guess, main focus. And so I reckon in the last 12 months, it's just been, for me, like the biggest learning curve of figuring out, I think I have more questions now than I ever have before. And I feel like I'm at a point where I can't remember what my colleague Tom will know this because he explained this, but that point of where you're learning and you feel like you know everything. And then all of a sudden, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I'm at that point where I'm like, holy moly, we know nothing. Yeah. And there's so much that I want to know. And so that's kind of brought me here, but I'm still at that same spot of just loving sport because it's such an outlet, and I want to support athletes so that it is still an outlet for them. Yes. At that sub-elite level, because you're so right in that a lot of the time at the moment, it doesn't feel like it for them. A lot of the time it might feel like a job and like a chore. But for me, sport was never that. It was always fun and I loved it. And there still needs to be that joy aspect, even when you're striving for that high professional standard. And I think a lot of the like highest teams in the world and the most successful athletes will always talk about how enjoyable sport is for them. And, if you're at the point where you are just hating coming to training, you're hating games and things, I think it's a good opportunity to have a look back and think, hang on a sec, like this was never what sport was supposed to be.
Yeah. What's my why?
What's the why? Yeah. Because there's always going to be so much more stripped back, but it's just, the sub-elite gets quite heavy with everything else that weighs it down. So
yeah, well, it does. And I think like at the sub-elite level, you're always thinking, once I make it, it will get better and I'll be happy and I'll enjoy it more then because I'll be able to dedicate my whole life to it, which in ways, yeah, probably true. Like, you know, there goes a lot of your financial stresses,
Yeah.
you know, your other sort of stresses, but you're still playing the same game. Then you'll be focusing your whole life on the one thing. So I think it's really important that every athlete, irrespective of level, focuses on why you play sport and come back to that. And like, as I said on my previous episodes, I struggled with that. And now that, you know, I've had the 12 months off, I really know my why and I can't wait to get back out there.
So
but
good.
yeah, it's and like we're talking about physical loads, but it's about, you know, your emotional load, your psychological load.
Absolutely.
Because unfortunately, we're very multifaceted beings, us humans.
Oh my gosh, we have so much going on.
We have heaps going
It's
on,
true.
yeah. So in your studies, what have you sort of found to be the main patterns when it comes to female athletes, and what have been your key learnings so far?
So I'm kind of at a point with my studies that we don't have too much like conclusive research yet. I'm at quite like early stage. So in terms of actual numbers and things, we don't have too much. But from the, I guess, data that we kind of do have, there's pretty much almost a lot saying inconclusive, which to me, I guess, and in a research perspective, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, well, that proves nothing, does it? Like, but I think looking at it so far, you have to look at any kind of answer in research is an answer, right? So inconclusive is an answer to what we're looking at. And to me, I look at that and I'm like, wow, there's like very almost limited patterns, which means that we just have to go individually, right? Like what we're seeing is not, oh, okay, so like, you know, if this person, you know, does this many steps during the day as in their nursing job, then this is what this means for their training. Or, you know, if someone has uni like workload, we're like, okay, if you study for any more than 5 hours, then, you know, it'll be too cognitive fatigue. And we don't have anything like that that strictly says, okay, here are the rules. And so I think, and hopefully, to be honest, this is what I'm kind of hoping from my research. I hope that we have some, you know, trends that will give us a bit of a clearer, you know, indication of where we're going. But I really hope that a lot of the conclusions are looking at, okay, you need to go sit down and have a chat. Have a chat with the athletes and figure out what they're doing. And the goal for me is to find out those practical applications. And I want them to be able to go down to not only that sub-elite level where it is, you know, quite that, I guess, higher stress level, but even to local teams, because we have the same kind of thing. And as much as I'm so excited for female sport to get to that point where it's so financially secure that athletes feel that they can do that as their full-time job, if that's what they want to do, there's always going to be sub-elite and there's always going to be local teams.
Yep.
And so I think that when I'm kind of going into looking at all the information, I started at that top level and I was like, oh, what are our like top level players doing? And then the more you think about it, the more I'm like, well, in the next, you know, couple of years, I'm hoping that our athletes are actually financially supported enough that they can do that full time, if that's what they want to do. But if we look down, we can't financially support, you know, our sub-elite players. It's not in any kind of sport. It's not full time. That's like semi-professional, right? And so that is always going to exist. And if that's the case, then what can we be doing? And where can we kind of go with that? So in terms of trends, I guess, like we're kind of looking at the moment, you know, having a look at factors such as injury, having a look at what encompasses their kind of work schedule and that kind of thing. And hopefully soon we'll have some answers that can kind of point us in the right direction to best support, for sure.
So you're talking about like the practical considerations. So when you've gone to athletes and you've asked them, what are they doing outside of their sport? How are they sleeping? All of these types of things. How have you practically been able to so far implement that within their training schedules?
It's so different. I keep saying the same thing. It's so different for everyone.
Yeah.
So from the conversations I've had, usually what we'll do is, and a lot of the time they're really good and they'll come to me and they'll be like, I need help. Like my schedule feels really overwhelming. So what I'll tend to do is start by just sitting us down and I'll just write out their weekly schedule. I'm like, tell me what you're doing on Monday. Tell me what you're doing on Tuesday. And we just go through all the days of the week, and, you know, might chop and change. Things like shift work and that kind of thing will make it so that they have different things on during the week. But typically there's kind of a trend, I guess, of what they're doing throughout the week. And I think a component of visually being able to see what your week looks like, you'll get two reactions. You'll get one that's either like, oh, okay, that's not as bad as what I thought. You know, like when I can visually see what my week looks like, I actually do have a lot of, you know, time in the week that, you know, maybe I'm not best using effectively. You know, maybe I'm sitting and doom scrolling as opposed to what I actually want to be doing, which is, you know, going in just like a quick dip in the beach for recovery or whatever it is. And that's not something they have to do, but maybe they're thinking they don't have this time, but they do. It might be at the other end where they look at it and they're even more overwhelmed because they're like, my week is packed. And I knew it was packed, but like visually seeing it, I'm like, whoa. So then from there, it will depend on, I guess, the athlete and what, I guess, the concern is for us in that stance. And if it's something that in their schedule, we can't change, all of that is, you know, compulsory work or it's training nights or, you know, any other aspects like family commitments and that kind of thing that can't be shifted, then we need to look away from that because we can't change it, right?
Yep.
So what can we change? Having a look at, okay, where for me, I'm thinking, what are they reporting? Whether that's, you know, in their wellness that we're getting, is it that their sleep is really affected at the moment? Is their stress really high? And, you know, is their body really sore? Out of those kind of three broad factors, I just choose one and go for now. If, you know, if they're coming to me being like, I'm overwhelmed, I have a really busy schedule, like I need support, and we look at their schedule, I'm like, I know.
You got a bit
no
on.
worries. Yeah, you got a lot on. Then I'm like, okay, that's overwhelming them. We need to find a way to not overwhelm and simplify it. And not in a way that, you know, is like, oh my gosh, don't even worry about it. Like, if you're fine. But in a way that we're kind of like, okay, to me, your sleep is actually your number one thing that you're trending at the moment and it's quite low. Okay. Education piece around recovery, like how that's so important. Having a look at during the week, and I haven't come across someone who can't, you know, improve their sleep habits and things like that within their schedule. There's no one who is that busy who can maintain the level of a sub-elite athlete. So there's always going to be something that we can have a look at and go, okay, you know, on a Monday night, what time are you going to bed? And then, you know, it's 3 hours after they get home. Why? What are you doing in that time? Can we shift that earlier? You know, and here's why. Here's the importance of sleep. Here's the importance of how it will make you feel like at work, when you come to training. Here's what we can do. Let's practically set aside. I want you to try these things, give them a couple of weeks, recheck in and have a look. And I think that probably that last point of following up is probably the most important, because a lot of them will kind of leave conversations and be like, awesome, great. I've got the tools. I know what I have to do. I have to, you know, have a look at my sleep. Okay. That's what they've kind of gotten away from that. We didn't change anything with their schedule. They just need to focus on that. And then they'll go away, and then, you know, a couple of weeks later, if they don't check in, and if they haven't looked at actioning it, you know, everything's kind of got on top of them, they haven't looked at it, then they wouldn't probably come to me and tell me about it, right? Because they're like, oh, I still have to do that. Like, she's already told me what to do. I know what I have to do. I just haven't done it. Yeah. And so they're not going to talk to me because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm really embarrassed. Like, I haven't done it. Yeah, totally. And that, in a sense, so I've almost had to get better at following up sooner rather than later. Like the you know, the week after, I'm like, all right, how'd last week go? Like, we had a chat about sleep habits. Did you do it? Like, why not? And obviously there's an honesty piece that's within that, and you know, you're not going to get anything from telling me you have tried something when you haven't, but they're always really good in being honest and being like, I couldn't. Like, okay, great, why? Like, let's go again. Like, okay, if we can't change this, then what else can we be changing? And so I think it's just picking little pieces, because the smaller you can kind of go, and the less change that you have to do just in like a big picture, the easier the whole process is, and the easier you can kind of walk away and be like, okay, I've got one actionable item that I have to go away and do. And it just makes everything feel a lot a lot more achievable.
And I feel that like as though we also take on a lot more than we need to, and we're sometimes struggle to say no, especially when you're sort of at that sub-elite level and you're trying to do everything you can to make it to the top. You think that you have to take on the world.
Yep.
And I think what you're saying here is like it's more of an education and an empowerment piece to empower the athlete themselves to identify symptoms
Absolutely.
of being, you know, overworked, under-recovered, and then actually finding the tools. You're helping them with finding the tools, but they are the ones who need to action it themselves.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, it's their career, it's their well-being, it's everything. You can only tell them so much, but they do need to take the onus on. So if they're educated and aware, that's going to be a really helpful step. Let's look at it from the trainers, coaches, and their lens, because obviously it's a very individualistic thing to look at. But unfortunately, when you're coaching a whole team, it is kind of a one-size-fits-all approach to some extent.
Definitely.
So how can all these load factors that you're looking at outside of the training schedule, how can that be implemented into a team setting?
I love that you've done that, because I have spoken so much about individually, and I guess that's more my role, is having that individual conversation. But in terms of from a coaching perspective, I think that again, you have opportunities to talk to people, but I think that the group, and if you're looking for it, you'd be able to see the group will often have trends themselves. And whether that is at certain stages of the year, whether that is coming off losses, whether that's coming off wins. There's different stages throughout the year where you'll kind of have a look at the team. You're like, whoa, everyone is quite flat at the moment. And I think that it can be quite easy just to identify that as it is. And if you're able to identify that, there's probably more going on than you think. You know, maybe it's like quite a busy exam period and you've got, 7 people who are all in this same kind of uni time frame where they're quite swamped and they're really stressed, and that projects on others, because then skills are dropping and everyone's kind of dropping their heads, and you're kind of having a look. And I think that there's so many times where these teams that we're working with at the sub-elite level, because they do have so much going on as well in the rest of their life, and they come to sport, a lot of them are talking to each other, and they do really use each other to resonate with and to like feed off, which is really important because they need that support network. But it does then cause a trend, and then you see and you're on the field and you're like, what are they doing? What are they doing? Like,
talking about bloody exams for.
Yeah, you're like,
cut it out.
What is happening? Yeah, stop the uni.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at it and you can very easily, as just any kind of outsider, have a look at a team and see whether that's a reflection of how they're going in the season, or whether it's literally a reflection of where they're at with life, like whether it's the weather. There's so many different things that you can kind of be looking at as a coaching kind of group. But I think there's less so, or it's more of a place of like meet them where they're at, and understanding your group of athletes and how they're going to best respond. And I, like, in that sense, there's no one size fits all, but it's just understanding your group and who you've actually got in front of you. And as just coaching staff or any other kind of support staff, understanding that, okay, hang on, like the whole group is kind of, we're at a bit of a weird kind of energy. Let's shift training, like maybe let's add in, it might be something as easy as a particular game or drill that just gets like some energy up. That might be all they need to, like we were saying before, like bring the fun back in sport. Like maybe it's literally a warm-up game that's just a really fun, light-hearted thing. Maybe that's what they need. Or maybe it is a point of where you can recognize with your group that you're like, no, they need to switch on here. Like we need to come up with them with a little bit more intensity. And whether that's a conversation of this isn't good enough, let's go harder. Show me what you've got, go again. And there's so many different approaches that you can have, and that's probably a more, I guess, broad kind of approach of just understanding your group and who you've got in front of you. But the more that you can kind of, if the coach, and I've had these conversations before where a coach has said, like pulled me aside and said, what's going on? Like what's happening with this player? And I'm like, oh, I haven't spoken to them in a little while. I'll jump in and have a conversation and see if I can support them in any way if they feel like they can open up. And a lot of the time that isn't even like, it's not something even I'll share with the coach later, but I'll just be like, oh, good, I've had a chat, or or whether that's something that the player does need the coach to know about, and they're like, yeah, if you could tell them, that'd be fantastic. Like, there's so many moving parts, and I think that's probably the stuff that you don't often see with coaching staff and the whole I guess wider group that will support a local and a sub elite is just looking out for the whole group, but within that group, what are we kind of noticing during a training session, because there's a lot going on.
And coaches have such a big role to play when it comes to vibes, don't they? There's nothing worse than going to training and knowing that if I stuff something up, I'm going to get sprayed. And just going to training, and I'm a big believer that we need to be professional at training. Like, we need to train like we play. Be respectful. Don't speak while other people are speaking. But you need to whistle while you work. Like, you need to enjoy yourself. And we always play so much better when we're relaxed, when we're, feeding off each other's energy. And I think that if a coach can have the self-awareness to sense that, look, we're a bit flat, we've just come off a few losses, how can we make training fun again? The vibes will pick up, everyone will play their best, and I think that is something that they need to be more focused on, as opposed to, okay, we lost that game because we weren't great on our effective kick, so we need to go and smash that. And if anyone talks while I'm saying this, Jill, I'm going to spray them, and I'm going to make it a really tense sort of environment to be a part of. We need to strip that down sometimes, I think, and just be like, all right, let's just build this from the bottom up. Let's start on just getting some smiles on faces, people relaxing, and just getting back again to the why, because we're there to have fun.
And I'm really big on that, and that almost opens up the other conversation of we've spoken about what players are doing outside of sport, but like you said, a massive component is the coach. In a sub-elite setting, probably not full time. They probably also come from work, and they probably also got family commitments and
financial stresses, because they're not getting paid near enough.
And it is when we're looking at the whole broader aspect of that sub-elite component, like maybe that is something that happens with the coach comes in and they have had a massive stressful day at work and not in fault of their own, but they brought that to training. And so everyone's looking at the group going, what is going on that field? It's a coach. And it's not their fault. It's just they've had a massive day that has like really stressed them, and they can't wipe that when they come into training, which is probably quite a common thing that I think a fair people would see, and it'd be quite noticeable, because I think that majority of staff and especially who I work with are so good at coming into training and letting go and being like, I'm here. I'm here. I'm present. Whatever has happened today, I'm going to deal with that when I leave, right? And they're so good at that, and it's such a skill. And it's not an easy thing to be able to do, because when you've got things weighing on you, it's it's so much. It feels like it could be easier if you were just like to talk about your players, like, oh my gosh, this really stressful thing happened to me, and time and place for that. But a lot of the time, if you can make it's about the players, it's about their enjoyment of it. If you can kind of you're the vibe. You've got to bring that energy and help them, and maybe their energy is able to support you every now and then, right? Like, they'll carry the energy. They're a really good vibe team. They didn't even really care about the vibe of the coach today. They're like running on their own, but some days they will rely so heavily on how you are presenting and your language and everything that you're doing. They'll very much like resonate off that and go and use that. So there are still two sides of that.
Absolutely. And like, that's what we've talked about before, how powerful vulnerability is. Because if you're a coach and you come to training and be like, guys, I'm going to be really honest. I had a really shitty day today. This happened. I mightn't be my best, but please just bear with me. The girls or the boys or whoever it may be, they're going to be really respectful of that. And then likewise, they might come to the coach and say, look, I've had a really stressful day at study today. I failed my exam, this like X, Y, Z, and I probably won't be my best. And then the coach will be like, sure, that's totally fine. Just go and do your best. So I think the more that we can open up these discussions instead of being this like almost dictator, I'm going to yell at you if you don't do something right. It's just, at the end of the day, we're human. We have external factors coming into training that we just need to be mindful of, considerate of, and you're going to get the best out of your players as a person if you have that approach, and vice versa. We need to also remember that, again, our coaches are people. they're also working other jobs majorly, unless if you're, a professional athlete. They're not getting paid enough for the amount of work they do, which is huge. And again, like I've only sort of learned that recently, having coached this year, being an assistant coach, just the amount of work that goes into it. And you're constantly, on the phone, you have to worry about all the players and their own individual needs. It's a massive job. I think we need to give coaches way more leeway and respect them a lot more for what they do. 100%. So again, it's a balancing act. Yep. And it was funny, I was listening to an episode of The Imperfects yesterday, and we're just talking about well-being as opposed to like being healthy. And well-being, as she said really well, is literally just being a well-being and having all your different facets of life to be considered well. Yeah. And again, that just brings in what we're talking about now: psychological load, physical load, emotional load, mental load, all of it. It all comes into play. And I think the more that we can understand that we are human beings with emotions, with everything else going on, we will become better at, respecting the athlete and helping them perform to their highest standard.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it. I actually really like that.
Yeah.
That well-being.
Well-being.
It makes sense. That's probably why they named it that.
That's right.
And I think that the only thing that comes with that, and I totally agree. I have always been and will always be on that side of support and comfort. And like, whilst I'm striving for them to be at their highest level, I understand that you have to be able to meet them a little bit lower and softer and, meet that. But I think people sometimes look at vulnerability and professionalism and put them in two separate categories, and they can't see them merging. And I think it's a really important thing to be able to merge, and just because you're able to even if it's, you're not sharing exactly what's happened to you that day, but just being like, hey, just so you know, I'm, a little on edge, but, I'm here, I'm ready to go. I'd love for you to meet me where I'm at here. I'm going to give it a red hot crack, and understand that is professional and that is not, because otherwise players are like, oh, what the heck's happening with the coach
That's
today?
right.
Like,
do they hate me? No,
am I in trouble? And like, you don't know. And that's the thing. Yeah, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
So the more that, and that's not an oversharing thing. And it's just understanding that you cannot show up with the exact same energy, like player or staff. You can't show up with the exact same energy at that high level for the entire year. It's just not possible. And so the more that you can kind of understand yourself, oh my gosh, why am I grumpy today? Like, what has happened? Like, oh yeah, that happened today. And then understanding that doesn't need to be, reflected into your training or things. But if it does, like, that's probably where that's coming from. And that's okay. But people need to know, because otherwise everyone else has no idea what's happening, and they'll take it as their own. Yes. They're like, oh my gosh, like this person's really angry at me. And really you're just dealing with your own things, which everyone is all the time. And it's, there's so many factors that can be affecting it. But I think that, the more that professionalism and vulnerability can be just merged together so nicely, the better that environment will be, the happier it will be, the more engaging and exciting, and the more that it will be like sustainable at that sub-elite level as well.
Yeah, the better the world would be.
Oh my gosh, we could change the entire world.
Forget about sport. We're changing the world here, one episode at a time. So load management obviously ties in very nicely with the importance of recovery. And a lot of the time, and I know this myself, if I'm stressed, overwhelmed, it's the recovery that goes first. When really recovery is where the adaptation happens. It should be taken as seriously as the session itself. So tell us a little bit about the importance of recovery and how we should be sort of tweaking that and integrating that into our week, even if it's busy, just like the absolute importance of it, and maybe like how much we should be recovering. I know again, that's like as long as a piece of string, but generally speaking.
Yep. I think exactly how you've put it is recovery is just as important as what you're doing, right? So when we're training, both in the gym, when it's running on the field, any kind of component of training, you're doing damage to your body. And that's a good thing. Like, we need to damage the body so that it understands, like, oh, okay, we've got a stress here. We need to get better. We need to build. Our muscle isn't strong enough here. We need to, it breaks it a little bit so that then it builds. But it can't build if you just keep damaging it. So if you're going from training, it damages your body. and then you're not giving enough time to recover, you go train again, damage your body. You end up just spiraling down. And I think that a lot of the time it's not really that obvious. Like, you know, you can go a couple weeks with, you know, not focusing on your sleep, not focusing on your fuel, not focusing on, you know, what you're kind of doing in training, all those 1%ers of recovery. And you won't necessarily notice too much until then it does hit you. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sore all the time. I feel so tired. I don't feel like I'm performing. Like, even if there's measures of your performance, whether that is looking at what you're doing out on the field in a game, or whether that's in the gym, and you're like, I can't even lift the weights that I was doing a couple of weeks ago. What is going on? It's probably that.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of the time it's one of those, or recovery is one of those, I guess now, things that people will look at and be like, oh, again, that hustle culture of no pain, no gain, right? Like, yeah, you do, again, you need to damage your body to build it, but you can't build it without recovering. And the main kind of pillars and what I'll kind of see in the sub-elite aspect is sleep and nutrition. They're our main ones, and they're probably not looked at as importantly as they should be from a recovery perspective, but they're so important in nailing the food that you're consuming before and after your training. Are you eating something after training? Because that's actually not necessarily something that every single athlete's doing, because, you know, maybe they're not hungry after training, and, you know, that's okay, but your body doesn't have anything that it's using to recover, and we need that. And then a sleep perspective as well. That's your prime time to let your body rest and rebuild itself. If you're not sleeping properly, or it's interrupted, or, you know, you're having all these things going on, like that can be a massive factor, both from a cognitive perspective as well as physical load. But I think that from like again, that physical load perspective, we talk about, you know, periodizing training and that kind of thing, which is for the coaching staff and that component. So athletes don't really have to worry about that. That's not their job, right? So what they can be doing is that sleep, nutrition, and then your 1%ers. So like you're saying, the easiest thing to get rid of from your schedule when you're looking at the time, you're at the end of training, you know, you've only got a couple of gym exercises left, and you know that you've got dinner waiting for you at home, and you still are looking at that being like, oh, I should probably go into, you know, the ice bars or the hot pools or the sauna,
it's a
right?
cold Melbourne
and
night.
you're like, yeah, it's a
get me out of here.
Yeah. It is like miserable. You're like, oh, I don't really want to go home with wet hair. Like, it is a genuine.
It's a genuine concern.
It's a genuine concern. Okay, I understand. But at the same time, like, the minute that you also start, and sometimes you have a genuine reason that you need to go home early, right? Like, you have an early morning the next day, and you're like, you know what, my recovery win here will be to sleep. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to tick that box. And that doesn't mean go home and doom scroll for 3 hours and then go to bed, right? Like, that means like, okay, my choice here is to go home and sleep. I'm going to go home, make sure I'm fueled, and sleep, and like really tick that box. And that is a conversation I've had many times where it's like, yeah, okay, I know you've got work. You've got to be up at 5, go home. You need to go nail this sleep now. But in terms of those other kind of bonus aspects of recovery, looking at how you're treating your body, like, are you using things like a foam roller? Are you getting any treatment from physios from like a manual therapy perspective? Are you using the cold and hot pools or the sauna, or what you have access to that can just help that extra little bit? But I think for me, and what we'll mostly focus on are those main pillars and what they have in control, being the sleep and nutrition. But yeah, recovery is so just looked as like a fun bonus.
Yeah, an add-on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, part of the main picture of what it takes to actually get yourself better and get your body feeling right. Absolutely.
And I think going back to what you said earlier, when we look at the social media presence now, when we think of recovery, it has to be ice bars, it has to be Normatec boots, it has to be X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You get most bang from your buck from, as you say, sleep and nutrition. And it's amazing the extent that athletes would go to and the money that they will pay for all these 1%ers, but they often fail to just do the basics well, which is your sleep and your nutrition.
Yep. And especially really common at that sub-elite level as well, because that's typically the demographic that they're targeting with the marketing of these products, because at the, that high professional standard, the coach is like, what the hell, why are you using that stuff? Like, fine. Or like maybe they do, they use ice baths and things, but they've got they've got the protocols and they've got the practical components that make it realistic to do. Because, those tools can be really good, but they're expensive. Like they're not accessible for everyone. Structure and like how to use them. People don't know how to use them. Like some people just try and get an ice bath for as long as they possibly can. And so you don't know exactly how to do it. Whereas, our sleep and nutrition, there's so much research out there of how it can be used and why it's so important. And I think that for a couple of athletes, it comes down to like a personality thing of there might be some athletes who they love those 1%ers. They really feel good from doing that. They feel really good from using a massage gun. Fantastic. Right. Then you absolutely should be doing that. And I think it's more of just a reminder a lot of the time and just continuously reminding throughout any season, throughout the year that the minute you start dropping off, if you have a routine and you do your gym after training and you've got a couple of exercises and those last couple, which typically are like, your accessory work or things like
abs.
your calves, your abs, but even things like your calf work. Oh my goodness, if you're skipping your calf work because it's the last
splints.
exercise on your program, wrong. Right? Like it's all those things that we're looking at injury prevention and that kind of thing. Again, with recovery, once you start making excuses for skipping out, whether it's skipping out on that, having that meal prepped ready to go so that you come home, dinner's ready, so you've got proper fuel in your body afterwards, after training, or making sure you've ticked off those injury prevention exercises that are so important, and the little things that might seem like nothing, or like you look at the time, you're like, oh yeah, I've got a couple more hours, and then I'll get enough sleep. It'll be okay. Like you're probably actually not getting enough sleep if that's kind of the case. And so the minute you kind of start stripping things back, the easier it is then for the rest of the season is that's your routine now. Is you're not doing those last couple of exercises, you're not recovering, you're going straight home, and you're not fueling properly. Like that's kind of it. And that's what you'll stick to. And that's just how the body works and that's how your mind works. And you go, perfect. Like this is best case scenario for me. It's so easy.
That's it.
So I know there's always barriers and always kind of those reasons of, I really want to go home after training, but those little things and making sure you're taking care of your body, and making sure recovery is just as important as your training at the end of the day.
It is that compounding effect, isn't it? Like
Absolutely.
You may think that sleeping for the next 2 weeks, maybe an hour less, isn't going to do much, but like our results are a direct lagging effect of our habits. And if that habit continues, you're going to notice it down this track. You're going to have the niggles and things like that. And
absolutely,
everyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with sleep and I take it very seriously.
Very good.
I'm in bed by 9. Do not disturb me. And I need my full 8 hours. Otherwise, don't speak to me.
Amazing.
But the way I approach it is that it is my job. If you want to be an athlete, an elite athlete, you need to take it as seriously as you would, I don't know, filling out your spreadsheet at work, that type of thing. And it's the same with nutrition. The problem with nutrition is that, yes, every person needs to eat and there's so many other issues and psychological issues with it. But at the end of the day, it is my job to fuel my body in the way that I'm going to get the best performance, just the same as recovery. So it's not a nice thing to do. It's like a must do and you need to take it more seriously. And I would never skip a session in the gym. So why would I skip a recovery session? That kind of needs to be a little bit more of the mentality, I feel.
Absolutely. That's a great mentality to have. I really feel like a lot of the time people do just have that mentality of just being like, it's, fueling my body is supposed to be easy. Like, I don't want to do it. I can't be bothered tonight. I can't be bothered cooking, the meal that I thought I was going to have because that was going to be proper fuel. Like, just going to get whatever I can out of the pantry, and maybe that just doesn't have the same amount of nutrient support that you need to be using to recover properly. A lot of the time, people probably don't seek the support they probably need as well. And at that sub-elite level, they're probably looking at the professional athletes who have access to things like a dietitian and support staff around that who, and, you know, whether it's wellbeing counselors and things is probably actually not super prevalent in the sub-elite and local level, is having that level of psychological support. But if you don't have access to that, if you're striving for professional standards, it's probably something really good to seek out. Have a chat with a dietitian and be like, this is honestly my situation. I get home from training and I can't be bothered cooking. And they will you are not the only person that has ever told them that, right? Like, they will have solutions for you. You've just got to seek out those conversations. If that's a problem you're having. It's easy to identify. It's easy to identify being like, oh, I'm only sleeping 6 hours. I can't get off my phone at night. That is, again, you're not the first person to have that problem. There's so many people that have that problem. You've just got to have the right conversations with people. Start banking some tools in the back pocket that it's like that. How when I was doing my PT work, one of my rules was make it as easy on yourself as possible to get to the gym in the morning, which means setting out your entire gym outfit the night before, packing your gym bag, packing a snack in your bag the night before, so that when you get up, it's actually like almost harder for you not to go to the gym than it is easier, right? Like if you need, if you're struggling with having dinner at nighttime after training because you can't be bothered cooking, you need to have something ready to go. Like what's a way that you can do that? Whether it's like a ready meal or something that, a dietitian has kind of approved for you that has the nutrition and values that you need to recover. Maybe that's what you need. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that's okay. If it means that you're getting more fuel, then great.
Yeah.
So there's so many things about that of just, it's not going to be easy, but maybe how can you make it easier on yourself?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Start the habits now. Go and read Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People. What it is. They are great resources.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Very good resource. Yeah.
Done my homework. Kick. It's so true though. And they are the things that you're going to get more bang for your buck out of than all these expensive 1%ers. And
absolutely.
It's something that we've been harping on for so long, but like often, we don't take them seriously enough. So sleep, nutrition, less is more in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you don't have to overcomplicate it.
No, exactly right. So what is the one key takeaway or one piece of advice you'd want to give every female athlete listening now when it comes to load management?
Oh, I like this question. You don't need to do everything perfectly to be a professional athlete. I think that so many times I'm seeing female athletes try and do everything, which, maybe includes sleep and nutrition and all those 1%ers, but they can do that for a couple of weeks and then burn themselves out. Your consistency with treating yourself as an athlete and understanding what that means is so much better than perfection. And 1 week of perfectly sticking to every single thing and, being on top of every possible component that the internet tells you is about being an athlete is nowhere near as good as consistently ticking off your big rocks and staying at a, relatively low stress level as much as your life allows you to, and feeling happy in your sport. There's no amount of overtraining and things that you can do to make yourself feel like an athlete, other than, actually just taking care of yourself and prioritizing what you need to, and just focusing on consistency and rubbing off, if you do have a night of really bad sleep, just acknowledge that and, try again the next night. Like, it's so much better than beating yourself up and, worrying about all these things that then add to the stresses of the rest of your life, which are going on. So just take it slow. You're doing well.
Yeah. My mantra is it's better to be consistently good than occasionally great.
That's exactly what it is. That was very well worded. That's pretty much what I said.
Yeah. In summation. So, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell 16-year-old Chloe?
Oh, that's so fun. Just keep enjoying sport. I think that, and 16 is a great age because that's, our statistic of where so many female and young girls will drop out of sport. And so to me at that time, it was watching so many people around me drop out of sport and just because they didn't like it or they were told, you're not very good. Like you don't need to keep up if you're not going to try and be professional. Like there's no point keeping up sport. So keep playing sport is what I would say to not only like Chloe as a 16-year-old, but everyone as a 16-year-old, keep playing sport. It's so fun. And you don't have to be, striving to be professional. No. But if you are, amazing. If you're not, keep playing sport. It's really fun.
Yeah. It gives you so much more, doesn't it, than just
the
game, the people, the lessons, everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is one thing we can all do today to help improve and promote women's sport?
We have so many ways that you can be supporting women's sport. Watching it, go physically to games. If you haven't been to the atmosphere, specifically speaking from an AFLW, if you have not physically been to an AFLW game, please go. I have influenced so many of my family members and my friends to go because they know I'm going. So they're like, oh, okay, we'll kind of come with you. And I have not had one person say that they didn't enjoy it. It is such a good atmosphere. And it's so exciting. I'm having so many more conversations now. Just on the gym floor where I'm at full speed and speaking to all the athletes there, and they're not even football players. We've got a couple of netball players, a couple of athletics players. They're talking to me about, the AFLW players on the weekend and the games that they watch on the TV. And the best way is to just keep making noise. I think that the more we keep talking about it, the more that podcasts like yours that are, branching out and being like, hang on, there are so many female athletes out there who are doing such amazing things. Keep watching them because they're going to keep doing amazing things and there'll be more that keep coming up. And I think that probably most importantly as well is just keep supporting those younger generations because our era of female sport is only getting stronger because those young players are coming up having, we've got footy players now who are coming up who've been playing footy since they were 6.
Incredible.
Which is so cool. And that's only going to, keep getting better. But we do need to keep supporting them, bring them to games. If you know young girls who, even if they don't, love sport, but if you can get them involved in that community, it's such a special community and, exciting time to be part of. So there's nothing better than making noise.
And I think it's so important for women and athletes now that we leave this space better than we found it and we be the custodians for the next female athletes and do everything we can in our power to make sure they have more opportunities and better access to resources and things that we currently do not.
Exactly,
so that's very important.
Yep.
Finally, what is the one thing exciting you about women's sport at the moment?
Oh my, one thing. I'm so excited about female sport. It is so exciting. There's so much happening. Even just over the last couple of years that I've just been at Carlton, watching not only the players and I guess how professional it feels and how exciting it feels and physically watching the crowds as well just get bigger and more people talk about it. But I think that watching female sport become such a powerful thing to be part of in terms of looking at the Female Athlete Project and the way that females are just becoming such incredible role models in the space. I think that there's too much to be excited about in the female athlete space than there is not to be.
That's right. So jump on board.
Hell yeah. Why are you not already?
Exactly. What more do you need?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so exciting.
It is. Well, thank you so much for jumping on today. And, key takeaway is that sometimes less is actually more.
Yeah.
There's more than just physical load when it comes to sport. There's the psychological load, there's emotional load. And we really, as holistic human beings, we need to take all that into consideration to be the best athlete, to be the best person. And the more that we talk about this, only the stronger it's going to get. So thank you for helping share the message and good luck with your PhD. We'll be very interested to see what the results are.
Yes.
When does that finish, by the way?
I've got a couple years left.
Okay. Yeah. That's all right.
Yep. There's a fair few years left in me. I'm currently part-time, so it'll take a little while. But as soon as I've got the research, you'll see it. Absolutely.
Brilliant. We'll have to have another episode then about all
Absolutely,
the findings. And where can listeners find you?
I'm on Instagram at chloegiles.sc.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my best platform.
Yeah. And I must give a shout out to Liz Ho because she was the one who set this up.
Yeah.
She's one of our dedicated listeners, and she said that she wants to know more about this topic and that you are the best person for it. And clearly she was right. So
fantastic.
shout out to Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And
Chloe.
we appreciate everything you're doing in the women's sporting space.
Thanks.